This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 223, Honesty Sells, an interview with Colleen Francis.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And before I get started, I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. It is our Independence Day holiday here in the United States. And actually, the 1st of July was the Independence Day holiday for Canada, which is where our guest is from, Colleen Francis. She's the founder and president of Engage Selling Solution, and she is author of the book, Honesty Sells. Colleen and I have a really frank and honest conversation about how to solve problems, how salespeople need to address selling, and if they're transparent, and if they're honest, and if they're clear, and they honor their word, they're going to be much more likely to be successful. So with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Colleen. Are you ready to babble?
I am ready to babble.
Colleen, you have a book out called Honesty Sells, and which is perfect for sales babble because we're all about selling secrets for non-sellers, which is this whole idea of not being that pushy, arrogant, ugly selling person.
Yes.
But you think honesty sells not just because it's a good thing to do, right?
Not just because it's a good thing to do, because it's the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do, right? There are so many salespeople who will say, yeah, but, we have to fudge the truth, or I didn't get back to that customer, or I won the deal anyways. And, there's definitely some short-sighted wins that can come out by people not being 100% honest, but it's no way to build a long-term relationship. And quite frankly, it just makes it so much harder for the rest of us who have to do our job in influencing people when we see behavior like this.
I was flipping through your book this morning, and it was you had a bunch of really terrific stories in there. There was one about the guy.
What do we call it? The sales hall of shame at the front end?
Yeah, there was one where a guy, sent a used copier when the customer had actually bought a new one. There was a car dealer who said this car is not being produced anymore by the manufacturer when that's not the case.
Yeah.
God, what's up with that?
Well, and it's weird because we don't see that many examples recently of that kind of blatant lying anymore. I kind of was hoping that it would go away, but we are still seeing examples of people delivering untruths, let's call it that, or not being honest, in way over promising and under delivering, right? So a client of mine gets engaged with a current vendor of theirs. They promise all of this stuff to them, and that they'll do it for free, and then essentially they show up on site, do one day of work, and say, oh, the rest of it's going to cost you $120,000, right? A complete bait and switch. She was oversold. Now, some people might argue that, well, that's her fault for not asking questions, but the customer purposely misled her, thinking that they had no choice. And so we see that all the time in the business, and I think it's really unfortunate.
The thing is, I think people are actually... I have two points of view on this. One is this whole idea of fake news, right?
Yes.
It seems like people are very skeptical about what they hear and what they believe. Yet at the same time, there are people who feel like this is the way to get ahead, is to share untruths and half truths.
Yes.
And it does appear like it seems to work. On the other hand, because they're not like these people aren't out of business or out of office or whatnot. But on the other hand, I kind of feel like because of the internet, it's just so hard to know who's for real and who's not. Yeah. So if you find somebody who's honest, you're gonna kind of stick with them forever.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I realize, not all of your listeners are in the formal sales profession, but we have to be more skeptical of some of the information that we're reading about, because it's really up to us to make sure we're making decisions based on the facts. And if your gut as a buyer or someone who's being influenced or a reader is, got that feeling in the stomach that says, that just doesn't sound right, then dig into it a little bit more and make sure you're not making a decision based on an assumption that you have on an untruth, a false fact. Because you're not going to make good business decisions or personal decisions if you're not actually dealing in reality.
Sometimes as sellers, we end up working for companies who kind of live like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to sell stuff, which was very, very hard to do, actually, that really wasn't what it was said it said. It really wasn't what they said it was.
Okay, yeah.
We got this spec sheet. It says it does all these features. Actually, they kind of half work. They're not there, or they're going to be here in 3 months. As sellers, how do we reconcile this?
Well, I wouldn't use the information. I mean, I would tell the customer what it does do and doesn't do now. Yeah, sure, some of the functions might not work as well as they should, and I think you can be transparent about that without bad-mouthing your own product. But if companies are putting out lies about their product, saying it does things when it absolutely doesn't, or it doesn't right now, then I probably wouldn't work for them, frankly. But if I had to, for whatever reason, or I really loved the product and what it would do, I would not use those spec sheets, and I would be honest with the customer about its capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've done a good job of, that's very good. I think we've done a good job of kind of framing this problem here. Why don't we start with some strategies? What is the strategy that you're promoting?
Well, a couple of things. One, I always like to remind sellers that trust is built through consistent behavior over time. And buyers will make decisions about whether they can trust you on small little actions. So if you say to the customer, I'll get back to you on Tuesday, and then you think, well, I don't really have anything to tell them on Tuesday, so I'll just wait a couple more days till I have an update. You think that that's innocent, right? Because you're saying, well, I'm not going to waste the customer's time by calling Tuesday when I have nothing to report. Yet you promised to call them on Tuesday. And so not doing so is essentially not upholding your promise and lying to the customer. And they say to themselves, fair or unfair, wow, if Colleen can't keep her word, if she wasn't honest with me about that small thing, how can she be honest with me about the stuff that really matters, the big stuff? So all those little mistakes, no matter how well-intentioned they are, add up to then cause the buyer not to trust us. And when they don't trust us, they're not going to buy from us. Or if they buy from you, you'll get one sale and you'll never hear from them again, which is no way to build a business. So I always say never overpromise and underdeliver. Certainly don't underpromise and overdeliver either, though, because you set a false expectation. What we want to do to create a balanced and honest relationship with our clients is tell the customer exactly what you're going to do and do it exactly the way you said you were going to.
I like that. What's next?
Well, that's one. So one way that you can do this is through voicemail. So you can always leave a voicemail, send an email to a customer and say, this is how you prove that you're an honest person. Sorry, I missed you. I promised to reach you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And then actually call back at 2 o'clock and say, hey, I'm calling because I promised to reach you today. So that's a really great voicemail strategy that we advocate and that I document in the book that is really helpful. For a customer service perspective, I think it's important that you remember that no news is always bad news. And so if you promise to have an update or a fix or a conversation with a customer on a certain date, even if you have no news, even if you haven't heard anything, you pick up the phone and you call because you promised to call. So those are two strategies that often salespeople sort of forget about. They don't feel like we're being dishonest with our customers, yet they create an environment in which they don't trust us, which then leads the sales to erode. I really hope I don't need to tell people just not to outright lie, right? Don't tell the customer they can have it tomorrow if it's not going to be in stock for 3 weeks. Don't tell them it's new if it's used. Those are all important messages that I hope we understand intuitively.
The thing is, if we have happy clients, I think we're much more likely to have them come and buy more stuff from us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so much more profitable.
Yeah, there's this whole new push towards what they call customer experience, right?
Yes.
Where it works on this. People are on this subscription kind of like subscription model, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a phone system or a software app or something. But
No.
the happier these people are, the more likely they're going to keep resubscribing, and we actually need people to like touch them and to reach out to them and to make sure everything's going okay.
I just had this conversation with a client, a Fortune 5 company, Fortune 10 company that I work with, and they're having all sorts of customer service problems. Orders are being delivered incorrectly or incomplete. Billing is, invoices are taking a long time to be paid. I mean, just a whole host of let's just call them technical problems. But when we dove into this, we discovered that they love doing business with my clients. So despite the fact that they're having way more problems than with competition, they prefer to do business with us because the experience is better. Well, yeah, I'm having more problems, but at least I can always get someone on the phone. You're working to resolve it. I know you're making progress. You're honest and transparent with me about the work you're doing to fix this problem. And I said to him, this is really good news because that kind of corporate, transparent, honest culture is very hard to develop. Once we can fix the technical problems, you are poised for takeoff because that customer experience that you just mentioned a few seconds ago, it is poised to be the key differentiator amongst companies over the next few years. By 2020, I think it was Gartner or Forrester said, customer experience will be the key differentiator in a competitive market to determine whether a company does business with you and stays doing business with you or doesn't.
And that totally makes sense. Most of what we're selling, for most people, it's a very competitive market. Lots of customers. There's lots of other vendors out there selling stuff that's almost identical to what you have. This is one key way for them to differentiate.
Yes.
What else?
I think a couple of things. I think it's really important for sales leaders or leaders of all teams to encourage a culture of honesty inside the organization. So what does that mean? You can create a massive amount of dysfunction on your team internally, which will then manifest itself to external dysfunction if you allow rumors to be spread, if you allow people to talk behind people's backs, if you allow people to blame others and not take it on the chin when they make a mistake, or hide behind mistakes that others are making. Because what I have found inside organizations is the way you behave to each other internally is a direct correlation to the way the company behaves and the individual will behave to their customers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also the way companies buy and sell are intrinsically linked. So if you're dishonest with your vendors, if you withhold information from your vendors, if you play them off against each other trying to get a better deal, if you purposely, share quotes from one vendor to the other, which is wholly dishonest and potentially illegal in some businesses, then you can expect that your sellers will behave the same way to your customers. Why? Because they see you doing it internally. And they say, well, my boss just showed the quote from one CRM company to another one to see if he can get a better deal. Why can't, we can do the same thing. We can behave that same way with our customers, right?
Right.
So that leadership and the culture is really important. When people are blaming each other and not being honest with each other, and when gossip and rumor is allowed to exist inside your teams, then you create a culture of dishonesty. You create a culture where people don't trust you, and they take that out into the field.
I've seen that. I've experienced that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, just own it. I know we're not, it's little things. So, for example, a few times over the last 17 years of consulting, other experts or companies have plagiarized my work, right? They've just blatantly stolen copies of articles or blog posts. Somebody actually stole my bio once, which is very strange, but anyways. And in every case, when I have called the person on it, the company or the other expert, they blame somebody else. They say, oh, that must have been my intern. Oh, that must have been my husband. Oh, gee, that must have been the sales GP. I'm like, wow, why don't you just own up to the problem and deal with it honestly? But it makes the other person feel terrible, me in this case, because now I'm thinking, well, I mean, how stupid do you think I am, right?
The thing is, in sales, I've actually learned a long time to be quick to apologize. even if it's not my fault.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep, we screwed up. That wasn't me. but I can't say that to them. I'm like, we screwed up. It's totally on us.
Yep.
We're going to make this right for you. I totally
Yep.
apologize. This is never going to happen again. It's all on us. You did nothing wrong. It's not on you. It's on us.
You know who does this really well, and it's sort of an odd source to be quoting, but there's a restaurateur in New York. He had Madison, 11 Madison, Danny Meyer. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. And I think he wrote a book on high-end service. He also owns Shake Shack, which is one of my very favorite burger joints in the entire world. But I always remember reading something that he said about this. And he said, when a diner comes into a restaurant and something's put in front of them that's wrong, they don't like it, it's not cooked properly, or it's wrong, and they complain, the first thing the server does is apologize and takes it away. You remove the offending object from vision and you resolve it. And taking away and apologizing actually helps to resolve the situation, because the patron doesn't feel like their concerns have been just, tossed under the rug or ignored. And it's the same in a business-to-business environment. You got to take it off the table by owning up to it so you can create an environment of trust.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thought. I don't know how many times they said, "Is this perfect?" I'm like, "No, this isn't what I ordered," but it's still sitting there, and I'll go, "Yeah, it's all right. I'll eat it."
You need to be eating at better restaurants. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's probably that could very well be true. But you walk away. But here's the other point. Here's the end of the story. Right? You walk away and you go, "That place sucks."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You won't go back. Now, if they had said, "I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Let me take it back into the kitchen and make it the way you ordered it, or bring you the right dish," even if the dish that came back was kind of mediocre, or you had to wait a little bit too long and your friends had finished, you would feel good about that interaction. And that's how you turn a negative situation back into customer loyalty, right? You will tell people, "Yeah, you know what? We didn't have a great meal, but the restaurant did a good job. They gave me a free dessert because they brought out the wrong food," right? So you tell the positive there. Now you're just going to tell the negative story. And if people say, "Should I eat there?" Wasn't great, and they got my order wrong.
This goes right to a quote I pulled out of your book I was reading, and I thought this was really interesting, that honesty sells is an optimal model for top 10% of the sales performers. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes. Well, when I look at sales teams, I typically see that 10% of the sales team are consistently overachieving their targets. So when I say top performer, I mean that group on your team who is performing better than expected, higher than planned. And what I notice about those groups is that they have a culture of honesty. They are transparent with their customers. They're open with their customers. They keep their promises. They don't overpromise and underdeliver. They don't underpromise and overdeliver. And they take responsibility, right? They take responsibility for their failures, but also their successes, and they own up. Their attitude is, "You know what? Someone else may have screwed up. Shipping may have screwed this up. Invoicing may have screwed this up. Software development may have screwed this up. But ultimately, I own the relationship with the client, so it's my responsibility."
Excellent. If you could give our listeners one piece of advice they could go take action on this week, what would that be, Colleen?
Well, I would make sure that you are creating an open, transparent, honest relationship inside your organization as well as outside. I would encourage your listeners, no matter what kind of role that they're in, to not promote rumor and gossip inside a team, to make sure that they are themselves, being open and honest with everyone around them. And then from a sales perspective, the easiest thing you can do to start creating this honest environment is telling your customers what you're going to do and absolutely, accurately doing it the way you said you were going to.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. How can people find you online, Colleen?
Oh, I am ubiquitous online. So they can visit our website, which is engageselling.com. From there, you can link to me on any of the social media platforms, be it Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, join my newsletter, subscribe to my blog, or even go to YouTube and see me at colleenfrancis.tv.
I'll make sure to put all those links I think you've already shared those links.
There's a lot of them, I know.
Yeah, I think Casey has shared them with me all on, and I'll make sure and put those in the show notes. Your book is on Amazon, I assume?
Yes, I have 2 books, and they are both on Amazon, honestysells.com and Nonstop Sales Boom.
And you want to give away a book, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So what we're going to do is, if anybody would like a copy of this book, email me. Click on the Babble Me button on Sales Babble, or they can hit the reply if they're on the email list, and I will randomly pick out a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to have people with signed copies of my books in their hand, putting all of the tactics to good use.
This sounds like honest enthusiasm.
It is.
You laugh. Honesty really does matter when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
People can feel when you're lying.
Yeah, you raise such a good point. They really can. And, in a buyer-seller relationship, they may not be able to put their finger on it right away, but those buyers get that feeling in their stomach,
Yeah.
and they say, I've been working with these 2 vendors. One of them just doesn't feel right to me. I don't really know why. It just doesn't feel right. And so then they make a decision to go with the other buyer, and they probably can't even articulate why, but they know. They absolutely know.
Yeah. Colleen, thank you very much for visiting us here at Sales Babble. This has been, honestly, this has been a great conversation.
Given the nature of your conversations, I am going to 100% trust that was an honest
I love it.
endorsement.
Time and time again, I saw my competition lie about their capabilities, lie about their features, lie about all kinds of things that their software could and couldn't do. They would lie about us, say that we did things that we didn't do, or we didn't do things that we did do. And it always burned me up. And as much as I wanted to complain about it, I found that the best tack that I took was to be straight with people, to be honest with people, to be frank, to be transparent, and to give prospects the sense that they're dealing with an honest company. I think Todd Capone talked a little bit about this, right? And it was part of his Power Reviews thing. That people don't expect you to do everything, but if you're pretty straight about most of the things that you do, either the product or service that you provide, they're going to be happy. And that's the tack that I have always taken when selling, and that has really worked for me. So I think Colleen is spot on. You can connect with her. You can find those links that we mentioned in the interview in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com/223. That's 223. And as she mentioned, she's giving away a free copy of her book, Honesty Sells. All you got to do is email me. Go to the Sales Babble homepage, click Babble Me, and say, Pat, I want to be in the raffle. And I'll pick somebody out randomly. And while you're there, you're welcome to find all the back catalog of past episodes. They are really terrific. And if you got a question or a comment, you can ask me too. Like I said, the United States is for the most part on holiday this week. So if you're at the beach listening to this, good for you. I love the lifelong learner. Other than that, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.